Can you hear me now? Cool. Well, I've been chatting for the last 3 minutes, and yeah, that's awkward. I was just saying a few minutes ago that I've moved from streaming on my Xbox to now streaming on PC, so the technical side of things I'm still getting used to. But yes, better late than never. Happy New Year, in case I haven't wished you that already. Hope you're really well. Back for the continuation of Season 1 of the IIRL Championship. This week we're in Mexico. 8 races left of the season. It is the closing stretch. We'll update you on the drivers and constructors standings a little bit later on in qualifying. Yes, good evening to you all. We actually started a little bit earlier, which I wasn't quite expecting, so I sort of, not panicked, but was flapping a little bit, trying to get the stream up on time, and then my internet decided to have a massive sneezing fit on me and just wasn't working. But we're here now, and it's better late than never. As you can tell, we're in Mexico. We'll do a quick track tour in... Actually, we'll do it at the start of Q2. Whoever comes out first will do a track tour, take you around this beautiful Mexican circuit. But yeah, I hope you are all really well. Good evening to Crash the Master, otherwise known as Appy, to Take Her Easy, and Alrays. Hope you are all really, really well. As always, if there's any stream issues, let me know in chat. I think I've got the settings okay, but my internet's not the best, so we may have a few hiccups here and there, but hopefully it's okay. Everything on my end seems alright, so hopefully you guys can enjoy the stream. So we've got IIRL Appy, who is yet to set a lap time, but he is on a lap. So in a few short minutes we will see where people are stacking up. Any drivers in the chat, please let me know on the weather. It seems to be dry throughout because there's blazing sunshine and no one's using the mediums, which means that we assume they'll be using them in the second part of qualifying. Yeah, with 4 minutes left, Fairley and Connor at the top, the two Mercedes. Not too much against the norm. That's kind of been happening most of the season. Fairley with more poles than he can count on one hand this season. He's been very impressive in qualifying. We've got that guy, Mr. Wiggles, and Ryan, who is reserving tonight. And I actually raced him on Sunday night in one of the exhibition races that IIRL did. A bit of a test race. And he was very quick indeed. So excited to see what Ryan can do on his debut here this evening. Clements, Ross and Hyper in the two Alfa Romeos. Very close together. Nice to see. Into battle teammate. Into teammate battle. I don't know if I've... You know what I mean. But I've probably butchered that whole sentence. James White reserving this evening as well. Pete Hissey, Dr. Edward Appy, who has set a valid lap time and is now 13th. Cool Assassin Prev, who is a little bit out of position. You'd have to say he's 4th in the championship. So 15th right now for him is probably not what he was expecting, and he has invalidated, so he will go for another run. Flew, Maverick, Tidiest Bear and Padge, and have to say Padge has had a recent resurgence now. His wheel is back, so I'd expect some good things from Padge. Certainly he's a lot better than the 17.5 that he's posted. And with only 2 minutes left of the session, Prev coming into the pits. So it'll be interesting to see if Prev gets out for another run. Remember, the bottom 4 will leave us in this session. First of 3 sessions of qualifying. And Appy, his teammate, who is also our featured driver. Oh, and a bit of a mistake there into turns 1 and 2. A little bit of wheel spin and a bit of an oversteer on the exit of 1, which just set him up for turn 2 a little bit badly there, so he's lost a lot of ground and will probably have to back off this lap and start a new one. I'll tell you a little bit about Appy later on. We've got some cool gadgets for the stream, some cool images which hopefully you guys enjoy, which does make my life a little bit easier. It means you're not just listening to me, you have something on screen to stimulate you. So 3 out of the top 4 have retired, so pretty obviously going to get through with only 1.5 minutes left of the session. And good evening to you, AMS Fairley. Fairley says Connor for pole. Interesting. We'll have to see how that Mercedes team battle works itself out during qualifying. Remember, invalidating is very easy on this track, as Dr. Edward has just proven, which means that anyone could get pole ready. All you need is one bad lap where you invalidate, and all of a sudden you're out of the running for pole. So anything can happen here this evening, including Hissy going P8 ahead of Hyper, who has also joined Ross in retiring. And hello, SLR Connor. MS Fairley is backing you for pole, Connor. I don't know if he's trying to put the pressure on you there, or whether he just thinks you're faster than him, but it'd be interesting to see what happens between the two Mercedes cars. So Prev is back out on track now after coming into the pits. Tidiest Bear and Padge are currently in the pits, which means they will be leaving us. Tidiest Bear will start 18th on the grid. Padge will start at the back. Maverick, a little bit of lag, but hopefully not too much of an issue. And indeed, Happy New Year to you all in the chat. I've heard a lot of people having some wild parties. I work with young adults for a living, and they were telling me they were going out and partying quite a lot for New Year's, so you may have joined them. Fairly's washed. Well, we got the driver's standings, and I'm sure the driver's standings will disagree with that. Maverick and Prev are in the drop zone. Prev has dropped in there, thanks to someone who can't quite remember, I think. Maybe Flu? I think maybe Flu has dropped Prev out. Cool Assassin's also on a lap here, so Flu, Appy and Pete are in danger here as someone improves. Prev improves to P10, that he's safe and through to Q2. We've got Maverick and Assassin on a lap, so Appy and Flu could still be in danger here in the last few seconds of Q1. We'll see what Maverick can do. Cool Assassin can't improve on his place. Maverick improves on his time, but not his position. So very close there between Cool Assassin and Flu. Less than half a tenth. But that is the difference between making it through to Q2 and already having your grid spot decided. So here we go. The two Mercedes at the top. That guy, again, some impressive results in the last few races of this season, and following up with a nice little P3 in Q1. Two Haas drivers in the top 5, both Alfa Romeos there, both Red Bulls in the top 11 as well, and both Ferraris making it through, and of course both Aston Martins. So should be a good race this evening. As we say, Padge, Tidiest Bear, Cool Assassin and Maverick dropping out of Q1. And good evening to you, Ross. Sharing something of their setups in the chat. Nice for us to know as well. 8-9 wings, front and rear wings, is Ross. Fairly possibly running some more wings, so could be one to watch out for on the straights, is Ross. At the start of Q2, of course, this is where strategy takes centre stage. You see a lot of drivers fitting the medium compound tyre. Remember, if you get through to the top 10 and get through to Q3, whatever tyre compound you set your fastest lap on, you will start the race on that exact set of tyres. So you don't want to shred the tyres. You can put maybe 2-3 sets on in this session, but you don't want to completely destroy one of the sets. And we'll tell you a little bit about our featured driver, Appy, when he comes out of the pits. His teammate, though, Prev, is first out on track, and we will do a bit of a track tour of the Mexican circuit. It's a very tricky track, as I'm sure many of the drivers have already proven to us with invalidations specifically. However, the stadium section is very tricky as well. And the S section, of course, the infamous S section. Lots of points in this track where you can make a mistake. So finding a perfect lap here is very tricky, as Prev gets a little bit of oversteer. Actually manages to keep it on the track very well there. It may cost him a couple of tenths down this straight, but you do have this massive straight, as you can tell, massive run down to turn 1. That'll be interesting in the race to see who gets the best start. You can take quite a bit of entry curb on 1, 2 and 3, but of course that turn 3 inside apex will ruin your car if you run over it. Prev getting a nice little bit of slipstream from his teammate, very good there from the Ferrari boys. And through the chicane of 4 and 5 and the double right of 6 and 7, quite straightforward, I would say. Good overtaking opportunities into 4 and 5 as well. Then starts the massive S section, which is longer than you want it to be, because one slight bit of turning can completely set you in the wrong shape for the rest of the S's. You do get DRS assistance down up until that right-hander there, and into the infamous stadium section where it really is beautiful to spectate, but even trickier to drive. Some of these curbs can ruin your car. Through the final couple of corners, you may see a lot of people taking a nice tight line through that final corner. Prev opting not to. That's fine. It's a 1 minute 17.4, and he is using the soft compound tyre, whereas you can see over half the field have equipped the medium compound tyres. So interesting to see what people have chosen to do. Hyper has done a 16.7, although we did see Prev have a couple of moments of a couple of snaps of oversteer, so maybe he can go faster than that 1 minute 17.4. Mr. Wiggles has done a 17.3, only 6 tenths away from Hyper on the soft, so that's a pretty good lap there from Wiggles. We'll have to wait and see how it compares to everyone else's. Clements goes faster on the mediums than Wiggles by a tenth of a second. And now Ryan on the mediums. We'll see what he can do. As he comes around the final corner, there you see the nice tight line, and it's a couple of tenths faster than Clements, only a few tenths away from Hyper. So that's a nice solid lap there for Ryan. He's 3 tenths quicker than his teammate, as Ross almost goes fastest on the medium compound tyre there. So nice lap from Ross. It's currently Alfa Romeo first and second, but still plenty of drivers out on the track, plenty of drivers setting lap times, still plenty of movement in the standings on the left hand side of your screen. We've got Hissy, Flew, James White and Pete all in the pits, so we should have 11 times to compare once Fairley, that guy, Connor and Edward have all done their laps. Speaking of SLR Connor, he has invalidated on this one, and he's moving out of the way of someone. But his teammate Fairley is out on the medium compound tyre. While they're doing that, we'll tell you a little bit about our featured driver for this evening. It's IIRL Appy. Here come the new graphics that I was talking about. It could be absolutely rubbish for all I know. Again, let me know what you think. So Appy is 30 years of age. IRL is an 18 plus league, so No surprise that we have some of the older folk in our league. But he's 30 years old. He's Dutch from the Netherlands, and he has a wheel, a Fanatec 2.5 Club Sport with V2 wheel, an advanced paddle module, and of course a load cell. I have no idea what any of that means, but I'm sure you will enjoy that. As for his favourite track, he actually said to me that it's probably worth asking what are his least favourite tracks, because he enjoys so many. He says Spain is not one of his favourites, so yeah. Oh, and a bit of a slide there coming out of 3. So held it well, but that may mean that Appy has to put a new set of tyres on if he wants to improve that time. But still plenty of time left in the session. His strengths, he says, are his race pace. He says he can improve a lot. He can improve a lot in quali. But currently, at the moment, no issues too much, apart from Wiggles, who has crashed out in the last 30 seconds or so. Wiggles in the chat, let us know what happened. Didn't quite catch that, I'm afraid. Although you may not want to tell us what happened. That's fair enough. As for his favourite driver, Mika Hakkinen. In fact, Appy said Mika in our conversation, so I don't know if he means Mika Hakkinen or Mika Salo, but I assume it's not Mika Salo, let's be honest. But yeah, Hakkinen, great racing driver, one of the great Finnish drivers. As Fairley goes fastest by 1/10 of a second. Hyper also improved his time by 5/10, and SL O'Connor's up there in the top 3 as well. So there's still plenty of shifting in the standings. As for Mexico tonight, Appy's hoping for some points. Yeah, so that's good. And it's a nice jokey question we always ask the drivers, Crofty or Sun God. Everyone says, I think they're just being nice to me at this point. I'd love to be a Crofty, but there we go. Not to mention all the travel destinations you get to go to. That'd be amazing. Anyways, that is our featured driver. We tend to get... Well, I want to get every single full-time driver in this tier featured. So, hopefully, those who haven't showed up tonight will show up at some point before the end of the season. We can get to know them a bit better. So, yes. Hopefully you enjoy the featured driver. Let me know what you think of the graphics. We'll hide that for now. And at the end of Q2, we'll tell you a little bit about the driver's standings and constructor's standings, going into the final part of quali, so we can see where things are and catch ourselves up on what's happened before the Christmas break. Sun God 100% for nah, you're trolling. Must be trolling. Always turned into Demon Jonesy, trolling me in the stream. 4 new follows earlier on today, so thank you for Padge, Alonso77, Mr. Podium, and Predator 1987. Thank you all for the follows, appreciate that. Another 4 followers to the gang. We love it when new people join, so they can hang out with us. And if you want to race, get in contact with us on Twitch by whispering this channel, and yeah, we'll see if we can get you in. So yes, 5 minutes left of Q2 now. AMS Fairley is fastest right now, a couple of tenths quicker than his teammate, and Fairley has used the medium tyres, so that is a very good lap there from Fairley. Hyper's up there, ahead of SL O'Connor and Pete, all on the soft compound tyres, so they may be sitting pretty at the moment, but maybe those on the medium tyres might put on a set of softs in the next couple of minutes and maybe try and knock them out, or knock them down. In fact, SL O'Connor has used the mediums on the graphic there, so... Ross, Ryan, Hissy, Coens, Prev, Wiggles, who has retired, so he won't take part in Q3 even if he does qualify 10th. All of those using the medium compound tyre. Dr. Edward Flew still awaiting a first time on the board. My dad is Martin, hello. Call in the mud. He did leave us in Q1. However, free choice of tyre for the race. Anything can still happen. Safety car could come out and massively change what happens in the race. So it's not over yet. As Flue goes fastest, nice lap there from the Frenchman. 1 minute 16.1. And that should see him through to Q3. And just before he set that lap time, Magic Clo in the chat, cheering him on. Your support seems to have helped him. Nice lap there from Flue. What about Prev? One of two Ferraris, hoping to get through, and he goes P3. Nice lap there. Only a few hundredths away from pole. And can his teammate improve? He is almost 9 tenths up through the second part of the lap. Just a very technical stadium section to go. Round the final corner. Across the line. And he goes 4th fastest, just behind his teammate, and only 2 milliseconds ahead of Hyper. That's a nice little lap there. Very close at the top. Less than a 10th separating the top 5 drivers. Yeah, look at that. All very close between Flue on a 1 minute 16.1 and Hyper on a 1 minute 16.2. Very close there. But still, 3 minutes left of the session. Plenty of laps, I'm sure, are going to be flying on your screen. Got SL O'Connor, he's out on the soft compound tyre, so maybe thinking that that lap on the mediums isn't going to be good enough to get him through. Amos Fairley is also on an out lap. And he's also using a set of soft compound tyre, so Fairley and Connor not quite confident in their medium lap time. Or maybe everyone around them has just set very quick lap times, and a bit of caution. Connor through the S section. He is 3/4 of a second up, which is going to put him fastest as it stands. But we've also got Ross, Ryan, Hissey, Kemmons, Dr. Edward all on out laps. Remember, Wiggles and James White will not be going through to Q3, and will be 2 of the 5 drivers to leave us that we know of right now. And Connor does a 15.0, a whole second faster than anyone else. But his teammate is out on the track, and you could see Fairley go even faster than that. Time will tell. That guy's also on the lap. He's got a banger of a 1 minute 21, but that is in the drop zone at the moment, so he needs a big improvement. It looks like the cut-off is going to probably be around a 1 minute 16.5, or maybe even quicker than that. So that is probably the lap time you're aiming for, at a bare minimum anyway. Here comes Fairley now across the line. It's going to be close to Connor, and it's going to be faster than Connor. But this time the gap has shrunk from 2 tenths to less than 1 tenth. So it should be a good battle for Q3 between the 2 Mercedes drivers. Dr. Edward out on the soft compound tyre. In fact, everyone out on the track with the exception of Pete, Flue and Prev. Pete might be in trouble here. He's only on a 16.5. Yellow flag in sector 1 as Dr. Edward may get a bit of slipstream note from SL O'Connor. He doesn't let him have it. So Pete might be in trouble here. He's down to 8th place as Kemmons improves, as Appy does, and that guy as well. That guy with a great lap, 1 minute 15.4. Nice lap from the Aston Martin driver, and you can see dropping like flies. Pete, all of a sudden, there's someone's backwards. Thankfully, they were ghosted. That would be the Alfa Romeo of Hyper, who has finished in 10th place, and Hissey could be the one to knock him out, or he is on the medium compound tyre, so it will be a really tough order for Hissey, and he's not having the best lap as it stands. So it looks like Hyper may get away with that one. course, anything can happen. Hissy could still make it, you never know. Oh, he ducks into the pits. So, Dr. Edward was able to improve his time. Pete was in the pits and as a result didn't manage to get a quicker lap time in, which he needed if he wanted to go through to Q3. James White, Wiggles, Hissy, Pete and Dr. Edward all leaving us in the second part of qualifying. Making it through fairly, Connor, that guy Appy, Ryan, Clements, Flew, Ross, Prev and Hyper. And that predicted cut-off time of a 16.5 was a lot quicker than we thought. Some very quick drivers here this evening. And between Appy in 4th and Hyper in 10th, there's only 0.3 of a second. It's all very close here this evening. So as we just wait for Ryan to close our session, everyone in the top 10 qualifying on the soft compound tyre, that will have to start the race on that same set of tyres they set their fastest lap on. As for the 5 who left us in this session, they will have a completely free choice whether they start on the soft, medium or hard compound tyres, and they see it. 0.953 for Appy and 0.1221 for Hyper. 0.3 between the bottom 7 drivers in the top 10. It's looking like a Mercedes lockout again, but who's going to take pole? Fairley or Connor? And can that guy close that 0.5 gap to Fairley and challenge for a spot on the front row? It's all very, very close. Mr. Wiggles says that medium strategy is better. Surprised at so many soft runners. Well, I would say overtaking's quite tricky on this track. I know you got the massive straight, but a lot of the track is twisty, tight corners from the end of Sector 1 really to the start of Sector 1. There really isn't that many opportunities for overtaking. Your only real points are into Turn 1 and into Turn 4. So if you can maybe get a good start and have a good first stint, build a gap on people behind you, maybe starting on the soft tyre isn't that bad, but just depends on what the drivers feel comfortable doing. Time will tell if starting on the softs is worth it. Betting on a safety car, you never know. Never know. It is a tight track. Safety cars quite common here, as Clements looks to excuse me. Clements looks to take charge in terms of track position. He has got the Haas of Ryan right behind him, who does look like he wants that track position ahead of Clements. As a result, we may see that some of the drivers lose some tyre performance because they push so hard on their outlap, but it might be okay. I'm not out there, I'm behind the microphone. So then, every single driver is between the final corner and the start of Sector 2. Times are going to fly in thick and fast, starting with Clements. He takes a nice wide entry to the lap, trying to maximise as much speed before he starts crossing that finish line. A little bit of a cut into Turn 1, but he got away with it there. No invalidation for the Williams driver. Looked pretty tidy through the first few corners. The Haas driver may get a slipstream here from Clements, but in the latter part of the lap he also may lose some downforce if he's too close to the Williams car in front of him. Are we going to see a 1:11? Well, What do you think our race? Let me know in chat. What do you think? I think we might, you know. Track evolution is the third part of qualifying. Track conditions look to be good. And I wouldn't put anything past Fairley and Connor in quali. Wiggles predicting a 14.7. We'll see if that rings true. I do think we will dip into the 1 minute 40, 114.9. Cummins kicks it off with a 16.0, but Ryan beats him by 0.4 of a second. Prev splits them on a 15.9, and Essel O'Connor indeed does go into the 1 minute 14s. That is an absolutely fantastic lap, and AMS Fairley for the first time is behind his teammate in qualifying. Can only manage a 15.0, which he managed in Q2. Ryan is still in third, Ross is in fourth, Prev is in fifth, Appy, Prev's teammate, is in seventh, Hyper in eighth, and Flew ninth at the moment. But what can that guy? He's had some decent pace. There's a nice little 6/10 gap between Fairley and Ryan that he will slot into at some point, I imagine, but not on that lap. It's a 1 minute 25.7, and he'll go for another run on the same set of tyres. And that guy has a nice bit of track in front of him. He's got an Alfa Romeo who is a few corners ahead, but it shouldn't be in the way. Should be a pretty clean run, just running over the curb at the exit of turn 3, but again keeping it on the track enough that it doesn't give you an invalidation. And it seems that that guy had a poor first sector on his previous lap. He's 7 seconds up at the moment, so maybe that's where he lost all his time last time. And some drivers filtering into the pits, some drivers on another run. We got a Ferrari out there, and both Mercedes cars going for another run. So interesting. And that guy, obvious improvements on this lap from his previous personal best, but what can he manage? Will he challenge for the front row? He's close. He's only a few tenths away from the front row of the grid. He currently slots into P3, just where we thought he might be. Fairley is a fraction up in the first part of the lap. Essel O'Connor, we're not too sure what he did in Sector 1. We've also got both Alfa Romeos on another run. Essel O'Connor has invalidated the end of the S section, whereas his teammate doesn't invalidate. Could be Fairley's opportunity here to take provisional pole away from his teammate. Oh, but he invalidates too, just a little bit wide there before the stadium section. Prev improves. Nice lap there, a 15.5 sets him on the second row of the grid, taking that spot away from Ryan, who is in the pits. Ross is also invalidated, and Hyper is on an in-lap. So round 1 goes to Essel O'Connor. Still plenty of time to go into the pits and come out again. Go for another run. But still, which way is that front row of the grid going to look? At the moment, it looks like a front row lockout for Mercedes. But you never know. Someone could set an absolutely blistering lap and throw their name into the mix. You can go off the track turn 3 and keep it valid. That's strange. Sometimes it invalidates you on some tracks, and other tracks it doesn't. Drivers starting to filter back onto the track. I believe Prev is on an in-lap. He's done 2 push laps and 2 slow laps on that set of tyres. So I assume Prev will be coming into the pits. Ryan is now on a flying lap, as is Flew 32. Appy's on an out lap, as is Ross. Flew, only 6 milliseconds down on his previous best in the first sector. So still all to play for here. As Hyper, massive improvement there. He's into the 1 minute 15s ahead of his teammate. He's jumped up to 6th place. Preve indeed is in the pits, as we predicted, for a new set of tyres. Esteban Ocon's still in the pits. His teammate is out before him this time. And that guy also on an outlap. Got Flew, followed by Ryan, saying flying lap times. Have to see where they finish. Flew looks like an improvement for him, but where is he going to finish? He's going to stay P10, but he's only a fraction away from Appy, as Ryan improves to P4 and puts himself back on the second row of the grid. Prev's lap time means he will start 5th instead of 4th as it stands, but still plenty of time to improve. Esteban Ocon's still in the pits now. 3 minutes left of the session. His teammate comes round to start a new lap time as well, so watch out for Fairley here. He's the one under pressure. He's the one who needs to go faster than his teammate. I just see some rain. I did just see some rain. It started to rain here, and that means that track conditions may deteriorate, and that may be why Esteban Ocon is still in the pits. And maybe that's the reason why he's not going to come out again, but Hyper's in the pits now. All other 8 drivers are out on track. Ross negotiating some traffic in quite an extreme way there. Waiting to see really if this weather is going to stick and the rain is going to stick to the track and make it very difficult for drivers to improve their time. Ross does improve by 3/10, but you can only manage P6 at the moment. What about Kemmets? He's into the pits. Appy is coming around the stadium section now, followed by his teammate. We'll also have to keep an eye on AMS Fairley. He's coming round through the stadium section. Appy's into the pits. What about Fairley? He comes around and he pits too, so that weather has completely ruined everyone's opportunity to set a faster lap time here. And it looks like Esteban Ocon has pole position. I don't know if the... Well, thank you, Dr. Edward, for that. But yeah, I wasn't sure whether the race would be dry or not. I only assumed, based that people were going out on track on the mediums in Q2. But this rain has thrown a bit of a spanner in the works for a lot of drivers. And it means that their first attempt is really the one that has put them on the grid for the race, and Esteban Ocon seems to have absolutely nailed it. We'll see what Preve can do. He's 7/10 in deficit on his lap. And what about Ross? He's coming into the pits too, so that rain too heavy towards the end of the session, and it's cost some of the drivers here a really good opportunity to improve their lap time. But that is the way that it's going to go. Esteban Ocon picking up his 4th pole position of the season. So congratulations to Esteban Ocon. Well deserved. Put in a good lap early on, and that seems to have benefited you big time. Didn't do a single good lap, says Esteban Ocon, so probably could do quicker. Set a 14.4 in practice, as did Fairley. So still plenty to come perhaps from the Mercedes drivers. There you can see it, the classification for Q3. Esteban Ocon and Fairley. It's a front row lockout for Mercedes. They're winning the Constructors fight by a long way, and Connor needs to take the charge to his teammate. I'll have a look at the driver's standings in a few seconds' time. That guy and Ryan on the second row of the grid. Then we got Prev, Ross, Hyper, Kemmets, Appy and Flu. It's a wave of Ferrari and Alfa Romeo between 5th and 9th place. So interesting to see which Ferrari powered car is going to end up on top. As always, we have a 5-minute break in between the end of quali and the race. Hopefully all the drivers remember. Yeah, it's been a few weeks since our last race, so yeah, it gives people a chance to rest their legs if they're on wheel, grab a snack, use the loo, whatever they need to do to prepare themselves for the race. In the meantime, though, we're going to have a look at the driver's standings. Another one of my fancy graphics. This time in green. Oh, I know what you're all thinking. So you see AMS Fairley leads the championship by 59 points. Yes, quick maths. 59 points from Hoi K, who unfortunately might not be able to make the rest of the season. So really, he has a 120 point gap to Ross, who is in what will be second place unless Hoi K can make a few races towards the end of the season. But beneath AMS Fairley, it's looking like the championship, he's got one hand on it already, but you never know. Still 8 races left, still 200 points to play for here, so if Fairley has a bad end to the season, you never know what will happen with those drivers' standings. But Ross and Prev locked in a very close battle there for what is now third. Only 3 points between them. SL O'Connor, bit of ground to make up on Ross and Prev, but he is on pole here this evening, so could be in a good spot to reduce that gap. Dr. Edward, some great results this season. 3 podiums out of the last 4 races, I believe, have set him into 6th place in the championship, and he's ahead of John, who unfortunately can't make tonight, so Edward is looking to increase that gap on John behind. That guy looking quick this evening and has some points to gain on Edward and John. Mr. Wiggles flew Appy, very close, 5 points between them as well. So still all to play for in terms of drivers' standings. It looks like Fairley does, as we say, have one hand on the title, but still lots of racing to go. But what about the constructor standings? Oh, something happened on my screen. There we go. There we go. Mercedes are out in front. Connor and Fairley having a great season. Uh, 349 points and looking in a good spot to go over the 360 or 70 mark here this evening. Alpine, most of the points from Hoi K, but Dr. Edward is contributing quite a lot. But without Hoi K, perhaps Alpine may not be in the hunt for first, but they could still get second ahead of Alfa Romeo, who are locked in a good battle between Ferrari. And you could put Williams and Aston Martin in that as well. Those 4 teams battling for third at the moment. We've also got Red Bull, McLaren and Haas pretty close together. AlphaTauri, unfortunately, just at the bottom. But still 8 races left. Plenty to go on. Wiggles happy for 50 points. Well, Wiggles, I think you're perhaps a little bit fortunate I'm not streaming the AT1 races. I don't think he has 50 points in AT1. But it is very tricky to race 22 races this season, which we are doing. We're not doing China. No. We're not counting Austria. No, we are. No, what am I talking about? For 82, we're not counting Austria, so there's only 22 rounds, but for all the other tiers, there's 23. So yeah, but for a 23 race season, it's very difficult to be consistent to this standard. And certainly better than what I can manage. I've been there out in front of races and binned it on my own accord. It's very difficult to finish races and be consistent, so all kudos to the drivers for what they're going to achieve this season. And we're not going to be waiting long for the Mexican Grand Prix. Thank you very much, Always. Yeah, hopefully they add to the stream, make the stream a bit better. 36 laps then of the Mexican Grand Prix. The drivers bombing it down to turn 1 on the formation lap, trying to warm their tyres, heat their brakes, go through the gears. And we'll bring up the tyre graphic so we can have a look at what tyres people are using outside of the top 10. We all know the top 10 have to start on the soft compound tyre, but Dr. Edward in 11th has opted for the soft 2. Pete Hissey, Mr. Wiggles, James White, Cool Assassin, all on the mediums. Tidy as Bear Padge also on the mediums. The only exception is RPR Maverick in 17th on the soft compound tyre. So watch out for Maverick, could get a nice start off the line and maybe jump a few into the first corner. And of course, this time last season in Assist Tier 1 we did see a collision between 2 championship runners, so this track is no stranger to drama and incident. So you never know what's going to happen. We may see some bits of contact. There are some changes to the rule book in terms of penalties from stewards. Hopefully you saw that in Discord if you are a driver. But if you didn't know, we are reducing the penalty points from 2 to 1, alongside a 5-second time penalty for an aggressive overtake, forcing a driver off track. Which we do to try and encourage drivers to race as hard as they can, but the penalty's still there to make sure that you don't push the limits too much and don't do anything that's unfair. I wonder if the drivers may go for some more moves as a result, or maybe they'll go for less, who knows. But the stewards have had a meeting over Christmas and they have decided that. And we'll have a look at what it does for the race. Here we go, 5 lights are coming off and the Mexican Grand Prix is underway, and it's a long run down to turn 1. It looks like there's an Alpine of Cool Assassin who's had an absolutely cracking getaway. Mr. Wiggles has had a poor start, he's now down to 18th, and also Appy has lost a couple of places off the start too. We've got both Mercedes going side by side here, but SL O'Connor holding it well in between his teammate and that guy round the outside, who seems to have got past fairly, but has just lost out through turns 2 and 3. It is as it was. Preva's jumped Ryan off the start, and Clement's also having a good start. Appy trying to fight his way back up from 10th, and he's passed Dr. Edward, who started in 11th, so he's had a good start. Hyper's dropped slightly off his starting grid slot, but still within the points. Nice start from Flew as well. Mr. Wiggles trying to fight his way back up the field. He's back up to 15th now. RPR Maverick, we did say watch out for him. He's up a place off the start. James White has gone backwards a couple of places. Still, all drivers within a second of the car in front. No real incidents to talk about. No bits of damage or bodywork flying off. Drivers behaving themselves. As further down the field we've got Hyper, who's dropped off a little bit in this last sector from the car ahead. May drop him under pressure from Flew behind. But overall, it's a very steady lap 1. Drivers behaving themselves. No DRS until the start of lap 3. So, Flew is using overtake here to get ahead of Hyper. Bit of a lock-up for both. But Flew in the Aston Martin looks to have got that move done. However, Hyper... Oh, and Hyper's out! It's a spin, a bit of oversteer, maybe a bit of contact that we didn't see. But Hyper is round and Hyper is out. There's a virtual safety car. It's not a full safety car, but that is unfortunate there for Hyper. Maybe just lost a bit of downforce when it really mattered. But Hyper is out. And after a strong performance in qualifying, unfortunately will take home no points this evening. And oh, you hate it when that happens. You're so close to the car in front and you think, oh, maybe I could get him here. And just a slight moment sets you out of the race. Very unfortunate for Hyper. It's only a virtual safety car, so we will get back underway in a few short moments. Of course, if you speed under virtual safety car, you will get a drive-through penalty, so drivers need to be careful that they don't do that. And of course, if you time it perfectly for when it ends, you may gain a small advantage on those around you. SL O'Connor did lead by 8 or 9 tenths before the virtual safety car started, so if that gap drops, you'd have to say Fairley has had a good restart, but we have no indication on the screen when it's going to finish. And there it is, and the gap is 1.2 there, so SL O'Connor has actually gained a good chunk of time on his teammate, and next time around DRS will be active. And so far Fairley doesn't have it on his teammate, but still he's got half a lap to try and drop that gap by a tenth or two. Top 10 all on the soft compound tyre, so should be mimicking each other's strategy perhaps. Interesting to see when the first driver to pit is. Oh, and Ryan's falling down the field. What's happened to him? A bit of a spin through the S section, or maybe some contact we don't know about. But he is falling down. He's dropped behind his teammate, side by side with his teammate. Pete has gone a little bit wide going into the stadium section, but keeps 11th. Doesn't seem like Ryan has any damage to his car, but we'll have to wait and see if he goes into the pits. No, he stays out. So perhaps a small mistake there from Ryan. A bit of a spin in the S section. That of course has boosted the likes of Flew up into 9th, Appy's up into 8th, Dr. Edward in 7th, Clements in 6th, Ross is up to P5. And another virtual safety car, and Padge has now retired. So maybe some debris on the track. Still early stages, lap 4 of 36. There you see the position changes. Ryan is down 9 after that spin, and Hyper with that DNF on lap 2 has meant a lot of drivers have made some marginal gains. Dr. Edward, the big winner at the moment, up 4 places, which means that he's gone past Ryan and Hyper, but also made 2 overtakes in the opening 4 laps. So good stuff there from Dr. Edward. Also Hissy, he's gained from the 2 mistakes from Ryan and Hyper, but he's also got someone else on track. Top 3 are as they were, and that guy has a penalty, as does Tidiest Bear. Let's have a look and see what those penalties are. 3 second time penalties apiece, and it's still very early days, so that guy has to be careful now that he doesn't lose a potential podium through time penalties. Oh, and that guy has got a drive-through penalty, speeding under VSC. We did mention that was a possibility. Well, that possibility has now become a reality, unfortunately for that guy. He may not appear on the podium come the end of the race, but there's still 30 laps to go. Anything can still happen. But Prev, I'm sure, in 4th place will be licking his lips now, thinking, oh, possible podium, but he does have Ross and Clements on the back of his Ferrari. So it could be a nice fight for P3 here, as we see the 2 Mercedes within a second. Looks like AMS Fairley is trying to close that gap to his teammate. Interesting to see what Fairley does here, because he does have DRS. The problem is, if he goes outright for an overtake, he may lose valuable overtake abilities on his battery. But of course he's in a good spot here to force his teammate to use his overtake, and for him to save some himself. It just depends on how Fairley wants to play this. course, he could just bide his time and hope that Connor gets a time penalty. Let's not forget, if they're on the same strategy and they're in the same team, Fairley's going to have to either box 1 lap earlier or 1 lap later than what Connor is doing. Otherwise they're going to double stack and Fairley's going to lose a lot of time. Still all to play for here. Lap 6 of 36, 30 laps left. Seems like the two Mercedes are out in front and look pretty comfortable. That guy is still in third, however has a drive-through, so it will release Prev, Ross and Kemments into 3rd, 4th and 5th place, where I'm sure there'll be an incredible battle for the last podium slot. Dr. Edward is in 7th place. Good start for him as that guy comes in to serve his drive-through and gets a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane in the process. It's not been that guy's day here this evening as Prev defending hard from Ross. Remember, DRS is active, so Ross has a good chance to get past the Ferrari here, but just depends on how you want to play it. Do you want to make the move and then try and push, or do you want to force the driver in front to use all their battery? And it looks like Ross can't get past Prev. Bit of a lock-up from the Ferrari. Of course, if Prev holds up Ross, then Kemments may be in striking distance and may go for a move on the Alfa Romeo car. So Ross in a bit of a, not a sticky situation, but needs to be careful how he plays it. Looks like he may have got a warning for crossing track limits there, but we'll have to wait and see. He does have DRS here, so may go for a move, but he chooses not to. Chooses to tailgate like a very good van driver there. Of course, these are the fastest vans in the world. Kemments is now right on the rear wing of that Alfa Romeo. This could be a double overtake on Prev here. But it looks like Kemments does struggle out of that final corner. He certainly has done on this occasion. He's still within striking distance, but he's a lot further behind than he might have wanted to. There goes Ross into 3rd. He's 3 seconds behind the top 2. Fairley still hasn't made a move on his teammate, so could be biding his time. Here comes Prev now. Of course, there is one activation zone out of the final corner for both of these DRS slots, so you get both DRS on the main straight and after turn 3. So Ross is using that to his advantage here. Prev needs to make sure that he gets the DRS advantage at the end of this lap, otherwise he might be a sitting duck for Kemments behind. Dr. Edward in 6th place, looking good. Has a gap in front of him to Kemments, but also is safe to Flew behind. Ryan, after that spin or whatever happened in the S section earlier on, he's on a nice little recovery drive. He's back up to 9th and he's only a couple of seconds behind Appy. Mr. Wiggles in 11th. He's on the cusp of maybe scoring a point this evening, but that 3-second time penalty won't help him out. And Thaddeus Bear at the back of the field, he's now got 6 seconds to his name. And it looks like Prev will get DRS, but Kemments is only a couple of tenths behind the Ferrari car here, and it looks like maybe this is Kemments' opportunity. That DRS is just so powerful, Prev using it to defend. Ross does stay ahead, but these two definitely within striking distance of the Alfa Romeo, and it looks like Prev's had a really good run out of turn 3, but not close enough. These 3 drivers putting on a show, back with the leaders. Fairley is just biding his time, it seems. Get the feeling that he could have gone for a move at any point in the last 3 laps, but he wants to wait for some reason. Could be smart, could be costly, you never know. Or maybe Connor is just defending expertly well and Fairley can't get past him. And SL O'Connor into the pits. So, Estelle O'Connor is the first to blink on the soft tyres. And Ross pits as well. Have to see if anyone else pits. Appy and Flew very close. Appy will get DRS down this main straight. Ryan also pits. Only the 3 people pitting on lap 9. As Appy very close now to the back of Flew. Gets that move done into turn 1. Down the inside, pretty standard, but left it a little bit late. Thought maybe they would go side by side, but Appy's got that move done, and he's got the DRS down to turn 4, which means he'll stay into 5th. Clements is still on the back of Prev, of course. When you box for a new set of tyres like Ross, Ryan and Connor have done, you get the advantages of the new tyres in better grip. It's what many people call an undercut, trying to overtake the car in front of you by pitting for new tyres 1 lap earlier. AMS Fairley into the pits, covering off that move from his teammate. Into the pits also comes Prev and Kemmons. Dr. Edwards stays out to take the lead of this race. Appy comes in, and Flew staying out. Of course, the medium runners will go a bit longer in this stint of the race, so Pete inherits 3rd place. Mr. Wiggles comes through to take 4th. Hissy comes through to take 5th. And a very close battle between Fairley and his teammate. In fact, it didn't look like Fairley had lost that much time on Connor anyways. Maybe Connor was stuck in a bit of traffic on his outlap. But Connor does keep 6th place. Not for long, he's looking to get past Hissy, who I think just lifts off there. Maybe think it's not my fight to challenge Connor here, and just lets him through. Could be a very wise move. And a bit of a slide there from Hissy in the background. He lets Fairley through now. Connor's also on the soft compound tyre, so Connor is going for a 2-stop here. And Fairley is onto the medium compound tyre. Oh, and Connor's out! I didn't even see that. I was looking at the tyre graphic on the side of the screen, and Estelle O'Connor is now out of the race. That was so unexpected. He just made the move on Hissy. He had his teammate behind him, but still. Estelle O'Connor, a huge mistake. And he will score no points here this evening. He's out. And certainly I was not expecting that to happen. Very unfortunate. Of course, the safety car is now deployed. And for every single driver on the medium compound tyre, it is a good opportunity for them to pit. And they may lose a fraction of the time that they would if they would pit normally. So, interesting to see where people are going to finish once all the pits are done. This brings that guy in Tidiest Bear back into it. That guy, of course, having a drive-through earlier on in the race. Stream is not going anymore on your Xbox. I haven't had anything saying my stream is bad on connection, so maybe just refresh that on your Xbox. Yeah, let me know if anything doesn't work. I've only got green on my screen, which is good. But yeah, a massive shock, and Estelle O'Connor, who looked to be definitely either in 1st or 2nd this evening, will not score, and that is such a shame for Connor. Of course, the safety car out means that the gap between Fairley and Ross has now shrunk and become non-existent. Ross has picked up a 3-second time penalty in the last lap or two that we haven't had the chance to broadcast. Also Kemmons with 3 seconds, Wiggles, Maverick, that guy, all with 3-second time penalties. Tidy's Bear with 6. he will have a chance to catch up to the back of the field. Well, lap 13 of 36, still got 2/3 of the race left. Anything can still happen, and of course now the drivers are bunched up. Strategy is going to be very interesting. Will those medium tyres go to the end, for instance? For the likes of Appy and Kemmets on the soft tyre, you'd have to say that they would have to make another pit stop. But will those mediums go to the end is the big, big question. Yeah, I'm not really losing frames per second our race, so I think the stream quality is fine from my end anyway. Yeah, let me know if anything changes, but from my perspective, all is well. And Connor in the chat, that's very unfortunate, mate. Was it just a bit of oversteer into the S section, or was there some contact? It's all good now, that's good news. Yeah, very unfortunate there, Connor. Touched the curb and it launched you off the track. Yeah, well, unfortunately it does happen on this game. Some say the curbs are very unrealistic. Just another example of perhaps where the game can improve for the next F1 game. Safety car is in this lap and Fairley will be leading them away. He's gone for it now. Hissy has a 5-second penalty for a collision with Wiggles. Flew and Appy changing places, and it looks like Ross has had a really good restart here. He's already alongside Fairley. A nice little gap behind him to Prev and Kemmets, but there you go, round the outside. And of course, when you round the outside and have the inside for turn 2, you can take a lot more speed into it. And Ross, nice move there. Great move down the inside, down around the outside of turn 1, and he's taken the lead of the race, but he does have a time penalty. So interesting to see what happens from here on in the top 4, all very close, within a second of each other. Dr. Edward is in 5th, Appy is in 6th, Ryan recovering from that earlier mistake in the S section. He's back up into 7th, and I have to say Ryan looks very fast here. Flew, Pete and Wiggles into the points, but Wiggles does have a time penalty, as does Hissy in 11th, so their challenge for points may be a little bit more complex. Mr. Wiggles, another time penalty, so that's going to really hurt his case for some points here this evening. But still, plenty of laps left. Ross leads this race. Kemmets is very close to the back of the Ferrari here. No DRS until the next time around the track. After a full course safety car, you need to wait until the 3rd lap of the restart to get DRS. All these 4 very close. Still have no idea which way this podium is going to go. One of these 4 drivers will miss out. At the moment, it looks like Kemmets, due to his time penalty. But Dr. Edward here is within striking distance of the top 4. He could mount a challenge for the podium here. As we say, still plenty of laps left, but as soon as DRS is active, that will be a massive game changer for any and all of these top 4. And if Dr. Edward can join this group and make it a top 5, then he can really put himself in a good position here, for a better position than 5th. Tidius Bear up to 9 seconds now of time penalties. He's on the back of White Maverick and James White Maverick and that guy for 13th, so he's still within striking distance. Pete with a time penalty, as is James White. DRS is now enabled, but they won't get it until the end of the lap, the end of Sector 2. So still an opportunity here for Ross to gain an advantage on Fairley. These top 4 are so close. I can just sense that there's going to be some contact on lap 16. And look at that slipstream that Kements is getting on Prev, looks to go for the move, almost contact. And again, almost a bit of contact between Kements' front wing and Prev's engine. Of course, all this fighting means that Prev needs to be careful that he doesn't lose DRS unfairly. Dr. Edward is flirting with the idea of being within DRS range. It looks like all of these 4 have DRS. It looks like Edward didn't quite get it on that occasion. Bit wide there from Kements into the stadium section, and will join on board with Fairley, who looks to regain the lead of this race. Ross will be, in all intents and purposes, a sitting duck down this main straight. There you go, pulling out to the inside. Kements is not quite close enough to Prev to make a move on the Ferrari. AMS Fairley retakes the lead of the Mexican Grand Prix as we are very close to half race distance. Fairley doesn't have DRS on this straight. Can Fairley now pull a 1 second gap this lap on Ross? Ryan is very close to the back of APS Appy on board with them as the top 4 continue to fight. Looks like Dr. Edward is slowly being dropped from that top 4 group, but he has a solid grip on 5th place here, which is still not a bad result. Here comes Ryan. He's got Hissy all over the back of his Haas. So this is now a 3-way fight for 7th place. Cool Assassin holding the final points spot. That guy is behind him, who I have to say was in 15th on the safety car restart, so he's now up to 11th and past his teammate. He's having a really good recovery drive as that guy, but he does have a time penalty next to his name, so points may be a challenge. Here comes Hissy now down the inside, avoiding contact are Hissy and Appy. That is good news for both of those drivers. Ryan, meanwhile, is now up into 7th. He's a couple of seconds behind his teammate, as side by side now, Hissy and Appy. Hissy makes the move. He's got it done. Appy has lost 2 places there in that first sector. However, Appy has a chance to strike back, as Ross now 6 seconds of time penalties. And this may open the door here for Dr. Edward to get back up onto the podium. He's currently within 3 seconds of Kements, which he's doing his job there really well. But now that Ross has 6 seconds, well, that may change the game entirely. Ryan and Hissy seem to have dropped Appy a little bit. Appy may be struggling on those soft compound tyres. They will start to go off around this point in their stint. Here comes Hissy now. He's past Ryan. Hissy having a wonderful race so far. He's up into 7th place. Kements looking to use DRS to get past Prev. To no avail. Lap 19, Prev stays ahead. Very close driving and good driver respect from every single driver. Haven't seen anything fishy in terms of dangerous driving. All drivers have been respectful, which is what we want to see, and makes for some fantastic racing. Prev, meanwhile, has picked up a time penalty, which means that if Dr. Edward can keep it clean for the rest of the race, he might be within a shout here of 2nd place. But of course, he's now 3 seconds behind Kements, which means that time penalty is, at the moment, pointless. But Still time for Dr. Edward to close that gap. Late braking there from Prev. Forced to cut turn 1 to avoid a bit of a touching of wheels. Kemmets has got that move done. Of course, we do know that Kemmets has to pit again because those soft tyres will not make it to the end. Question is, will those mediums last the rest of the race? Another 16 laps on them. That means Fairley will have to do 24 laps on a set of mediums. Might be a standard 2-stop for everyone on the board here. Still, nothing decided. We do know that Fairley leads this race by 1.4 seconds. And without a time penalty, definitely is in a good spot to win this race. But still, 16 laps left. Anything can still happen. He comes around to start lap 21 and has a 1.6 second lead on Ross, who is now looking to fight off the challenge behind from Kemmets, who is now past Prev, but Prev is still within DRS range, so he's looking to close that gap and maybe fight back. Opts not to go for a move into turn 1, but he may have a move into turn 4 lined up. Issy and Ryan swapping places again, those two having a nice little fight for 7th place. Mr. Wiggles meanwhile is using his soft tyres to close in on Dr. Edward. He's now only 1 second behind the Alpine driver. Appy losing a place also to that guy in the last lap or two. Appy struggling on those softs, but he will have an opportunity to pit and go on to a better time. Appy getting a 3-second time penalty. Tidy Spare now up to 12 seconds, I believe. Issy and Ryan have a lovely fight for a 7th place. Mr. Wiggles is now within DRS range of Dr. Edwards, so Mr. Wiggles, although he has had some issues with time penalties here this evening, he's got some good pace on him in that Haas. Kemmets into the pits, and then you can see a 5-second penalty, which means he's now up to 8 seconds, which again could mean that Dr. Edward has a sniff of jumping ahead of Kemmets. And there comes Mr. Wiggles, side by side, drivers giving each other room. Wiggles round the outside of turn 2. That was bold. Wait and see if it pays off, and it seems to have done. Mr. Wiggles up into 4th. Ryan and Hissy still going at it. Amos Fairley, a 3-second time penalty. It won't mean much at the moment because Ross has 6 seconds and Prev has 3 seconds. However, still, if there's a late safety car, it's going to bunch the field up, and those time penalties are going to be absolutely critical. So Fairley joins the gang. Only 3 drivers without a time penalty: Flew, Ryan, and Dr. Edward. These time penalties are absolutely crucial in a race like this. Kemmets is coming off the pits in 14th. He's on the back of Tidiest Bear. And they are coming down the main straight there in the background. Kemmets now up into 13th place. Ryan can't get past Hissy from the DRS, or maybe he's just biding his time here, waiting for a better opportunity. Wiggles and Hissy, Assassin and James and Tidiest Bear all done over 10 laps now on the set of soft tyres. They're going to have to think about coming into the pits in the next lap or two. So expect to see at least 5 drivers in to the pits, maybe this lap or next lap. As for the medium runners, will they make a late dash onto soft tyres around lap 26, or will they go to the end Tidy's Bear with another time penalty. Could be on for breaking a record of time penalties here this evening. Hissy now with a time penalty. Mr. Wiggles into the pits, and Hissy joins him. This releases Ryan into 5th place. Cool Assassin staying out, as does James White and Tidy's Bear. Kement's getting past Flew. Back up into 10th place. He doesn't need to pit again and has a massive tyre advantage compared to those in front of him. Kement's now looking to make a dent and fly up that leaderboard. I wonder if the medium gets to the end. That's exactly what I was thinking, and I tell you what, I reckon the top two may be doing a bit of time saving right now. The gap between Fairley and Ross has stayed around 1.3, 1.4 seconds for the past 4 or 5 laps now. But that gap to Prev has massively increased. So I wonder if Prev has had an issue. 6 seconds behind the top two, but he's still on the podium as it stands. Although Dr. Edward and Ryan do have the advantage in not having any time penalties. Still don't know who's going to end up on the podium here this evening. Kemmons is really making moves on those new tyres. He's got DRS on James White, who you'd think has to pit again. Getting a nice run out of turn 3. And a pretty straightforward move, you'd say. However, still side by side at this point. Could definitely be side by side into the corner, but no. Kement's getting that move done. And just 1 second up the road is Pete in the AlphaTauri. Still, Kement's looking to make major moves in this final stint of the race. We've also got that guy very close to having DRS on Ryan, who is closing in on the back of Dr. Edward, and Dr. Edward is also closing in on Prev, as Prev pits from 3rd place. And a bit of a slide there from Kement's. He's really struggling to keep it without oversteer, but that could just be a loss of downforce behind another car as Pete pits and releases Kement's. Kement's does have DRS now, so he will still get the benefits of DRS. Hissy with the new fastest lap of the race. He's on a new set of soft tyres, as is Mr. Wiggles and Prev, as are Cool Assassin, Pete, James White and Tidiest Bear. I reckon if these top 5 were on a standard 2-stop strategy, they would have pitted by now. So I reckon that top 5, certainly Fairley and Ross, I can't see any of them pitting again, because I don't think they need to. Although, having said that, Fairley has pitted. The more and more they stayed out, I was convinced that they were going to stay out. But Fairley now has he forced Ross to stay out? Or has he forced Ross into pitting this lap? Interesting to see here what Ross does. Remember, there's only 10 laps of the race left, and Fairley is 19 seconds behind. So Fairley would have to gain 2 seconds a lap, and past Ryan, and past Dr. Edward, and then catch and pass the race leader in order to win this race. Has Fairley given himself too much to do with only 10 laps left of the race? And of course, if Fairley gets another time penalty, then he may not even win this race at all. In fact, no, Ross has 6 seconds, doesn't he? Yeah, Ross has 6 and Fairley has 3. So Fairley needs to avoid getting another time penalty, otherwise he will have to overtake Ross on track. Ross does pit. Fairley has forced his hand, but Fairley has gained 2 seconds this lap on the soft compound tyre. So Fairley will definitely jump ahead of Ross. Dr. Edwards stays out, as does Ryan, which is probably wise from their perspective. But there goes Fairley, and there is Ross. Ross has lost out to Kemments, in fact, who is on medium compound tyre, but a brand new set. And it looks like AMS Fairley, if he can catch the top 2 and get a 3-second lead on Edward, it looks like Fairley has pulled an absolute blinder with his strategy. But still, 8 laps left. Oh, and Kemments runs wide and possibly letting Ross through there. Kemments has a 5-second gap behind to Prev, who is on a new set of soft tyres here, so Kemments can't afford to lose too much time behind Ross because he has his own fight with Prev coming up. Flew having a great race. He's in 8th place and without a time penalty to his name, but he has got his teammate right behind him on a new set of soft tyres. So Flew is going to go backwards in terms of places, but he could easily jump forward on time penalties. Gap out front, Dr. Edward leads by 1.8 seconds. AMS Fairley is on the back of Ryan now. Will he get DRS? No, in fact, he's just gained half a second in that first 3 corners. Fairley definitely looking like he is in a prime spot here to win the race, but he needs to make sure he doesn't get any time penalties from here on in, otherwise his chance at winning may go. And that's a bold move around the outside of Ryan into the S section, but Ryan gives him the space. Ross is now only 5 seconds off the leader, which means he has kind of closed that gap this lap to Fairley, but Fairley did have to get past the Haas car. Insane move, clip it. I think you should be able to. If not, we can rewatch the stream and clip it. Ryan pits. Very late move, might be going for fastest lap here, and a change for the lead. Dr. Edward not fighting too hard. Fairley takes the lead of the race. Dr. Edward here still has a good opportunity to stay on the podium. His real gap is 7 seconds back to Kemments, but Kemments has 11 seconds of time penalties. Dr. Edward looks like he has made the most of those medium tyres, and if he can keep them in good spot, in a good shape for the rest of the race, he will get a podium out of it. Yeah, it was a great move from Fairley on Ryan. Very ballsy. Ryan, meanwhile, has come out of the pits in 12th, but doesn't have a time penalty. He's a couple of seconds off of Pete, who holds the final point in the race. And Flew is on very old medium compound tyres, so Ryan could easily get up into 9th here. Ross is 5 seconds off the lead again, so he is lapping at a similar pace to Fairley, but just a little bit slower as Fairley sets a new fastest lap of the race. Lap 31 of 36, they've got 6 times left of the circuit. What's happened to Fairley? Has Fairley got a puncture? He's got a front right puncture. AMS Fairley has run over some debris somewhere or contact with a curb And I can't believe what I'm seeing. Both Mercedes cars have had absolutely rotten luck in this race, and Fairley has lost the race win on a front right puncture. I saw that gap between Fairley and Edward just drop. All of a sudden it just dropped. And goodness knows how that's happened. It could have been done on a curb. These curbs are quite brutal on this game. Or it could have been some debris. We did have a couple of VSCs and a safety car in this race. As Ross makes his way round Dr. Edward for the lead of the race. Ross now has to build a 6-second lead. The problem for Edward is he's fought too much with Ross, and he's now only 4 seconds ahead of Clements. The problem is, he was on new tyres, so it can't be a tyre issue. It can't be to do with percentage on tyres. It had to be some debris on the track. Fairley pits, and he might be able to salvage some points here if he's very quick in the last few laps, but my goodness, you'd have to say he's been robbed there of the race win and an opportunity to extend his championship lead on Ross. But now Ross has a great opportunity to close that gap at the top. Ross leads, and Fairley now 6 seconds of time penalties. I think Fairley, as frustrating as that is, he needs to calm down. Time penalties aren't going to help him. I know it's easy for me to say here, but if he wants to gain any sort of points, I think he needs to keep that at 6 seconds from now on. But certainly anyone in that position would be so frustrated and feel very hard done by here with only a few laps left. Dr. Edward 3.4 off of the lead. He's currently in the window that he can take the race win. He's definitely going to get a podium as it stands. He's got 11 seconds in terms of advantage on Clements, and he's got a 3-second advantage on Prev in terms of penalties. Mr. Wiggles has also had a great last stint of this race. He's only got 6 seconds now, and he's up in P5. James White has retired, and that's at the exit of turn 3. Will there be there's a safety car right on lap 33. There's a safety car, and this changes everything. This is a nightmare for Ross. Oh my word. Every single thing that's happened in this race, from Hyper's DNF on lap 2 to Connor's sudden crash, to Fairley's time penalties, to his puncture, to Dr. Edwards' great strategy, and now to this final safety car. As Dr. Edward pits. This has been an absolute roller coaster. Of course, it's for many drivers here, it's a free pit stop. Prev stays out. He leads the race. Mr. Wiggles is in second. Hissy is on the podium as it stands. However, the big gain here, you'd have to say, is probably Ryan. He finds himself in 4th place and possibly taking a maiden victory in IIRL on his first start. Wow. It's lap 34. I imagine at the end of lap 35 they'll be racing again. However, don't be surprised to see the safety car in this lap. It's quite unpredictable at times. It looks like most of the field who have pitted are catching back up. Safety car is in this lap, which means that guy and Tidiest Bear, they have to really catch up to the back of the pack here. Otherwise, they're really going to lose their advantage. I'll tell you who else this is advantaged is AMS Fairley. He has been brought right back into the picture. Pref now has the option to go. Ryan is in a good spot here for a podium, as is Dr. Edward, as is Prev. He only has 3 seconds here. Oh, and Ryan's out. What's happened with Ryan? I think there was contact. I definitely saw some bits of front wing, but Ryan is out of this race. The race carries on, but he's in the wall, and there must have been contact with someone. Just don't know who. And we thought Ryan was then going to win this race, and now he's out of the race. Now Dr. Edward is in what you think a prime way of winning this race. If he can stay within 3 seconds of our leader Prev. And how on earth did Ryan retire? Oh, and a bit of contact there between Ross and Wiggles. Old friends, old rivals colliding once again. Wiggles has dropped back now. Dr. Edward is up into third. Down the inside goes Kemments. Mr. Wiggles trying to fight back on the Williams car. Bit of contact. It's all happening. Ross is only a couple of tenths away from Prev. And Ross looks like he has some good pace here to challenge Prev. It's the last lap of the race. Lap 36 of 36. Anything can still happen here. Dr. Edward is in a prime spot here to win this race, but he still needs to be within 3 seconds of our race leader Prev, who is going side by side with Ross in turns 1 and 2. Ross makes that move done. Ross now needs to put his foot to the floor. Dr. Edward has a nice gap behind to AMS Fairley, who has jumped all the way back up to 4th place here. And it looks like he might lose a place to Cool Assassin on the line, but apart from that, it looks like Fairley won't lose any more places. Unless I jinx him, of course. Dr. Edward here needs to get past Prev quickly to avoid Ross gaining the race win. The gap is now 1.7 seconds, and if Dr. Edward gets stuck behind this Ferrari for too much longer, his race win might be gone. It's now 2.1 seconds. Ross will come home to take the checkered flag, but will Dr. Edward win? It's now 2.3 seconds. Round the final corner, AMS Fairley has fought amazingly back to get where he is, but Dr. Edward wins. Prev overtakes Ross on the line. Flew is now up into 4th. Cool Assassin is 5th. AMS Fairley, after that puncture, you'd have to say 6th is a very good result for him as well. Kemments in 7th, Pete in 8th. Mr. Wiggles still gets points even with the time penalties, and Hissy manages to stay ahead of Appy on the line. My goodness gracious me. And if ever there was a race where my neighbours would complain about the noise volume, that would be it. Wow. Oh my goodness. Always, I love everything about this race. I have to admit, that was scintillating. I have not commentated on a race like that, I think, since Bahrain last season. Wow, that was absolutely epic. From the first DNF to the last safety car and everything in between. That was absolutely fantastic racing. Obviously, commiserations to Fairley with that puncture towards the end, which ruined his chances at a race win, but still improves to P6. You'd have to say that is a good result for Fairley, considering what happened. Dr. Edward, though, with his first win in IIRL. The last 3 of the last 4 races Dr. Edward has done, he has had podiums, but no race win until now. Also, strong results from Flu and Cool Assassin for keeping it clean, which is what you got to do at Mexico. Also, Prev and Ross, great races from their perspective, but just one too many penalties for Ross. Prev gains a few points on Ross, which I believe puts them level on points in the championship. But no doubt, my driver of the day, in fact we're going to have 2 drivers of the day, Dr. Edward for his first race win, and also for AMS Fairley.
Anyway, cheers for watching everyone.
Definitely robbed of a race win, but just running over a little bit of debris towards the end of the race did cost him the race win, so Fairley will get a driver of the day as well with Dr. Edward. So congratulations to you two. My goodness, I will have to rest my voice tonight so I can talk tomorrow. That was a great race, especially from a neutral perspective. Just having a look at the chat. Merck had such a good race there. You say only one deserved winner, but Dr. Edward kept it clean, and in the end that's what won in the race, so congratulations to Dr. Edward. But of course Fairley, in an ideal world it would have taken something special to stop you. But yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes. That's the way the cookie crumbles, or indeed the front tyre gets damaged. Wow, I think we've all caught our breath, and we'll look forward to the rest of the week. If you liked what you saw this evening, why not join us on Thursday night? Spark will take you through the Assist Tier 1 race, and join us on Sunday night where we have live coverage of the Assist Tier 2 race. But wow, congratulations to Dr. Edward on his first win in IRL, and commiserations, but also congratulations on Driver of the Day to AMS Fairley. And join us next week, where with 7 races left of the season, we will be at Brazil for the sprint race format. We'll have a short quali session, a 25% sprint race, and a 50% normal race. So next week will be a little bit different, but if you enjoyed that Mexican Grand Prix, boy, join us on Thursday and Sunday nights for some more action. So I hope you have a fantastic week and a fantastic year. Happy New Year to you all in 2022. Let's make it a good one, and what a fabulous start that was. So we'll see you on Thursday and Sunday nights.